Welcome back, Steve Price. Great to have you with us on this Friday night, end of another week. Now, Victoria, and I'll go Olympics shortly, we'll talk about Cunningham and Paris, but Victoria and Melbourne especially is in the middle of what you could only describe as a youth crime wave and a bail crisis of the government's own making. Now, as I said at the top of the program, a year ago, the Andrews Allen government, under pressure from Indigenous rights groups, decided to soften the bail laws, and the changes went through Parliament this year. So they put the changes up in a bill last year. They were passed this year. Put simply, a 2013 change that basically meant if you reoffended while you're out on bail, you didn't get bail again. Now, this was seen by the Attorney-General, Jacqueline Symes, as affecting inordinately Indigenous offenders, especially women. She said that herself in the statement that she made, the ministerial statement, when these changes were made. Now, on the ground, the result has been a revolving door of bail and a youth crime explosion. Now, for more, I'm joined by Shadow Police spokesman Brad Batten. We've talked to him about this before. Brad, your colleague Michael O'Brien tried to fix this issue with a private members bill this week. What happened?
Well, Michael brought that into the Victorian Parliament, and as we've seen, it is a chaotic Parliament right at the moment because the government won't listen, but they actually voted against it. So backbenchers, front benchers, everybody from the Labor Party sided with those people who have been getting bail and committing crimes. What our view was, it's time we start siding with the victims. We've seen too often where people are dying on the streets because of people who are offending whilst on bail. We've seen a car accident recently where a person was killed and the driver at 17 got bail. We've seen Ash Gordon was killed in Victoria by people who were on bail. And unfortunately, Ash wasn't the first one. There was another victim before that who's had plenty of time still recovering because of the issues from those same offenders. Bail needs to be toughened up here. It's not about women. It's not about Indigenous people. It's not about non-Indigenous people. This is solely the fact of bail is there for people who can go back out in the community and be safe. There's a cohort that can't, and it's really important that the laws are there to protect the community, and those people that want to continue to offend shouldn't have the opportunity to come back out again.
I'll get on to the police action and the police attitudes to this in a moment, because I think Shane Patton said something very interesting on ABC Radio last week or early this week. I want to go back, am I right, back in 2013, under the previous Liberal National Coalition government, the bail laws were changed, and the key change was that if you are on bail and then you commit another offence, then your bail is taken away from you and you are stuck in remand. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, it's very close, Steve. But what it is, when you get bail the first time, they're taking into consideration community safety, etc. When you come back in and you commit an indictable offence, so you come back into the system, then to get bail again, the conditions for it are a lot tougher to get it. It's no longer, it's just almost a right to get it. Becomes, you've got to prove that there's certain circumstances to get it. If you do it a third time, then it almost is impossible to get it. What the government's done is, because it's no longer an offence to commit an indictable offence whilst on bail, that means you don't move up that ranking. So you're always assessed on the first level of bail. What we're saying is it needs to be strengthened. So if you do continuously commit crimes, at the end of the day, we have to eventually say, even if it's not just community safety, if you keep breaking into people's houses and you're going to continue to do it, then you shouldn't be given bail. You should make sure you've got to fight at a higher level before you get it out, where community safety is the priority.
Well, that brings me to the point Shane Patton made on radio, where he said that his task force knows a group of people, and he talked about a group in an age bracket that we're talking about here, 11, 12-year-olds, that are repeat offenders. And he named a number. He said there are, I think it was 85 or 75 people who he knows are repeat offenders. So that's an actual list that the courts and the magistrates can have in front of them, but they keep letting these same people out.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We had the debate on the Youth Justice Bill this week too, Steve, and the government members, reading off the notes that are handed to them from the department, continuously say it's a small cohort of people out there committing the same crimes. Well, if it's a small cohort of people, it'd be a lot easier to keep them off the street, put them into programs to give them opportunities moving forward, give them the chances to be re-educated while they're in there. Like, I don't care what it is when they go inside the system, but if we're only got a small cohort, why do we continue to bail them? Shane Patton's spoken about this before. before. He's asked for the strengthening of the bail laws. The government won't do it. And then this week they've introduced a youth justice bill, which will actually go the opposite in this. There's going to be a lot more changes coming through with the youth justice bill unless we can get it amended, which will give more young people, particularly that raising the age we've spoken about, more young people opportunity to get away with anything, including murder at certain ages. Whereas what we're saying is, whilst we don't want kids in detention, that's not ever our real aim. Our aim is to give them the opportunities and the courts the opportunity to put these kids in programs to give them a better chance moving forward. And the cohort that need to be locked up, then we have to use that system. But when they're in there, use that time to educate them, etc.
Just briefly before you go, why did the opposition walk out of question time this week?
Well, the Premier continuously gets asked questions about the CFMEU. She refuses to answer. We had 24 questions in a row where the Premier refuses to answer to the community what she knew about corruption in CFMEU, when she knew about it, and why she did nothing about it. And it eventually gets to a stage that us as a team have to stand up for Victorians and say, if Parliament's not working, there's effectively no use in being there. I was actually already asked to leave the Parliament the day before for the simple statement that I yelled out across the chamber when she said, answering a question. I said to the Premier, you're not answering questions, it's not good enough. And the Speaker threw me out. It's about time we stand up and say, Parliament is there to answer the questions, so please answer them on behalf of Victorians on what you know, when you knew, and what you've done about it when it comes to corruption in our state.
Brad Batten, thanks a lot. I'll talk to you again soon. That's Brad Batten, who's the opposition police spokesman. Let's